Let's do the state of the moribund Yankees, which isn't a word I get to use very often, but I think it's very apropos.
All right, the Yankees. So let's throw a little music in there too. All right,
I gotta tell you, man.
You got the Yankees here, man. Yankees are. You had sent to me rock bottom Yankees.
Yes.
Yes. Do I think it's a rock? Do I think they've hit rock bottom? I don't think they've hit rock bottom. They're still in the middle of the pack right now. I think they could be playing much worse, but they are not playing well. They are playing poorly.
And you cannot get swept by the Detroit Tigers,
right? And that
can't.
And that you can say that happens every year to every Yankee team. They just don't perform against a bottom tier team. Like, it just happens from time to time. Now, with that being said, I have not been keeping that close of an eye on the Yankees this year because, for one, they're, like we have talked about in the past, that they're boring. 2, they are performing like a bunch of clowns. And 3, there is just no energy. There's no like motivation.
Correct.
There's nothing. Like it comes from the leadership down, and this is something we've talked about in the past. And I'm just tired of it. I want to see some changes. They need to, like, you have to 100%. It's time. You have to move Gary Sanchez out of the catcher spot. He's done. He can't do it. He can't do it. Now you have to see if you can salvage his career by just having him DH and hope that he has some sort of David Ortiz kind of comeback like that. Like, he comes back and starts raking because all he has to focus on is hitting.
Yeah. Well, he's going to have to find the same thing that David Ortiz found, which is either the hole in his swing or an immense amount of steroids.
Yeah, but regardless of that, like, if he can come back and just focus on the one thing that made him what he is, and that is a hitter, then maybe you can salvage something. But you have to shake it up. You have to say goodbye to one of these guys in the outfield. Particularly not really a guy who plays the outfield very often. That's Stanton. You have to figure out a way to get him out of here. And
you got to eat most of that contract.
You're going to have to eat most of it, at least half, probably. You're not going to get a ton back for him. You'll get something. Hopefully, some good role players. Maybe some potential upside draft picks or something like that. I don't know, but. Maybe. You have to get rid of him. You have to free up some room because they're just, you can't have a cohesive unit if there's not a cohesive unit out there playing regularly.
Yep.
And I think as of right now, Mr. Kyle behind the backstop is a much better option.
Yeah, and even at that, he's not that good.
He's not great,
I like him.
But he's a better option.
Him. Yes, he is a better option. And he's certainly a better option defensively. That's not even up for debate.
Yeah, not arm-wise. Not arm-wise.
Yeah, Sanchez does have a cannon.
Sanchez has the best arm as a catcher in baseball. But,
yeah, he probably does.
But he's just he can't
too bad, relatively speaking, nothing else in his game behind the plate matches up with his arm. Yeah. Again, relatively speaking. Here's you touched on one thing that I want to touch on, which is the future of the franchise. But first, let's just talk about this Yankee team right now. So they've lost 5 of 6. They lost 2 or 3 to Toronto. They went into Detroit and got absolutely embarrassed. They got walked off on Friday night, and then they were non-competitive in 2 games. Not completely non-competitive. They are getting back to that stage now where they were at earlier in the season, where they would get down and it was like a knockout punch. You just knew there was zero chance they were going to pick themselves up and come back. You just knew it. And they are right back to being that again. Now, this team, but oddly before that, I still cannot figure out how they swept. How the fuck did they sweep the Chicago White Sox? I still cannot figure that out. That is a team that is superior to them in almost every single way. Certainly in terms of the lineup. Maybe it was just the Yankees were at the tail end of a stretch where they had been playing pretty well and somehow they were able to sneak 3 out against the White Sox. That being said, I don't know how you go from playing like that to then just completely shit in the bed against the Blue Jays and the lowly Detroit Tigers. And when I say lowly, I'm talking like that is bottom of the barrel, scraping the bottom of it. Worst teams in baseball discussion. I mean, that's let's be very honest about where the Tigers are.
Yeah.
Okay, that's who they are. This Yankees team has neither style nor substance. There is nothing about them, and you touched on that a few minutes ago. There's nothing about this team that stands out. There's no chemistry. There's no juice. There's no affection for each other. There's nothing. When you look at this team on the bench, they look like a beaten team before they could be winning and you wouldn't even know it.
Right.
And their best moment of the year, which was the Corey Kluber no-hitter, even that, as much as I enjoyed it, because I don't care what you say about no-hitters. I know that there have been 6 of them this year, which I know says something probably more about the state of baseball and pitching than it does necessarily about how special the moment was.
Yeah.
But even that, mostly because of Kluber and his fucking attitude. Yeah. Not that I like the guy. He's super intense. I get it. And he is an old school guy, which of course I appreciate.
Yeah.
But it just lacked something. Like there was just, I mean, no.
I told you.
The team.
I sent you like gifts. I was like, this is what I'm used to when no hitters and perfect games happen. And I was sending you clips of like David Cohn and David Wells.
David
and I hate David
collapsing, collapsing to his knees and Girardi pulling him in and protecting him and the team just jumping on him like they'd won the World Series. Right. David Wells being carried off the field.
Doc Gooden, like all
Doc
of these.
Gooden's no hitter. Jim Abbott's was so great.
Yeah, and like that's what I'm used to.
Right. When and this was just happens. Like he just kind of like barely threw his arms up in the air. I mean, the team was significantly more excited.
And they came out and just like high-fived each other. It was like they just got into the line and just started high-fiving each other.
They were. I mean, if you go back and watch it again, they tried to like pull him into it. It just couldn't happen.
It doesn't matter. You don't. There has been plenty of players who didn't want shine on them. And you get roped into it. They just don't care. Like they're just like, oh yeah, all right.
What's really incredible is that was nearly a perfect game too. Right. I mean, if you watch that game end to end, which I did, you could tell right from the first inning, like, he's got good stuff. Mm-hmm. Then by the third inning, you're like, I mean, the way the ball was coming out of his hand and his ability to locate that game. And the swings and misses, that's the stuff that was telling you like this. Let's see where he's at. Let's see where he's at in the 5th. Because after the 5th is when I start to really kind of pay attention.
Yeah. You
get through 5 and your pitch count is low.
Yeah, you were texting me dominant. Like the 7th. I didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh. And then I turned it on and I watched the rest of it and I was like,
yeah. And
his stuff was still super sharp.
Oh, it was filthy right till the end. And I was super into that. And I was literally like standing in front of the TV with like bending down with like my hands on my knees watching it. I really wanted that moment for him and for the team because it had been so many years, over 20 years since they'd had one of those. And it just, I mean, I was super into it, but I'll be the first to objectively say and admit that it lacked something. Yeah, and just like this team in general has lacked all year. Now, here's the other thing. Real quick, we're now at the 1/3 point of the season, almost exactly. This team, to me, they are who they are. They are 5 games over 500. If you want to average that out and multiply it times 3, okay, fine. You're talking about a team that might be 15 games over. That puts them in like the 87 win range. Is that a team that's making the playoffs? No, don't kid yourself. Not in this. Not when you've got 2 teams ahead of you that are at this point significantly better in the Red Sox and the Rays. And then even the Blue Jays, who I know are only a couple games over 500, but are now, only a game and a half behind the Yankees, who at least are dangerous enough with their lineup to be competitive. I will not be shocked even a little bit if the Yankees finish 3rd in this division. 4th, I'd probably be really shocked, but that would tell me a lot about what needs to happen. Now, let's talk about that very quickly because you touched on it. We were so the Yankees chat group was texting each other this week throughout this entire disaster of a weekend. And I am dead serious when I tell you this. There are like maybe 4 guys to me on this Yankee team that I would deem to be untouchable in terms of either trade or just letting go. Garrett Cole's one because you just have to have an ace. You have to. There are only a handful of guys in the league who can do what Garrett Cole does. If you have one of them, you have to keep that person. Okay. Number two would be your boy DJ LeMahieu. I mean, you signed him to a 6-year, $90 million contract, so that couldn't be a possibly more team-friendly contract for a guy who's probably worth significantly more than that. He's got to be part of your long-term plans.
Yeah.
Number three, Gleyber Torres. Just, you don't let kids like that go. He has shown you enough over the course of time to let you know that, okay, this guy needs to be part of this team in the long term. And then honestly, my last guy, and I'm not joking about this, Gio Urshela. That guy has proven time and time again since Brian Cashman pulled him off the scrap heap that he is possibly the best defending third baseman in baseball, and he is as clutch a hitter as this team has right now. And after that, and I'm including Aaron Judge on this, I could not care less who you let go from this team.
Wow.
I could not care less. To me, it's those four guys and move on. If you want to upend this entire organization and blow it up but keep those four guys, fine by me. That is completely fine by me. And you know what? And I'm not saying that I don't like Aaron Judge. I do like Aaron Judge, but I believe his numbers, as good as they look on paper, I think are very hollow in a lot of ways too. He is, to me, he's a good baseball player. I would not call him a great baseball player. I think he's a good player. He can hit in spurts. I question his ability to be clutch. Even he finally got his first quote unquote walk off of the year, and it wasn't even a hit. I mean, no, not of the year. His first walk off ever in his career, and it wasn't even a hit. It was a walk off walk, which was actually on Phil's PGA Championship Sunday. That was the walk off that they got. It was a Aaron Judge walk off walk. Aaron Judge finally gets his walk off moment, and it's a base on balls. And that, you know what? That probably speaks a lot about the Yankees this year too. That's sort of a microcosm of their season. Just bland. Like even when they win, it's not fun. It's not even enjoyable. It's like, okay, well, we got the dub, but wow, we couldn't even. And that's what I'm saying. Like this team doesn't give you anything. There's just no spark. There's nothing there. I said from the beginning of the season, I felt like this was an all or nothing Yankees team. And I believe now firmly it's going to fall into the nothing category. When I say nothing, I mean not playoffs. Wow. I felt like they were either going to win it all or they were not going to make the playoffs. I do not believe they're making the playoffs.
Wow.
I really don't. And I stick very firmly by what I just said about those four guys that I would retain on this team and nothing beyond that. And that includes my quote unquote favorite player, Clint Frazier, who is just, oh my God. The bat speed is there. He can't hit a lick, though. Like, he swings and misses through pitches that I think I almost could hit. I mean, I don't know what's going on.
I will say the one thing that I do wish that I was able to see this week or this past week was Florial. I wish I could have saw him and his 3 at-bats.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything.
I mean, he went 1 for 3. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it was anything outstanding.
He had a double.
But I will tell you this. Yes, he did. That was a nice hit. I will tell you this. I'd rather see him on the field every day than 38-year-old broken down Brett Gardner. Yeah. I mean, come on. Just, like, and if you're the Yankees, see, that's the problem with this team too. Unlike that team, what was that team many years ago? Where remember when they had to bring up Robinson Cano out of just like necessity because they had nobody and he bloomed. Yeah. That's the problem with this Yankee team is they are going to very tentatively approach how they bring guys up like that because they still view themselves as competitive.
Well, not only that, but they don't want to spend money. And the quicker you bring people up and all that kind of stuff, the more you have to pay them earlier. And they're
true. You get the clocks. Yeah, you get the clock started on them.
And they're just morons. Like, who cares? Just like you're the Yankees, you
play the kids. I would just like.
And at least if you have some young kids like that are fighting, to make their career, and then you have
Also,
Like
don't you
Giancarlo
wanna
Stanton.
see-
I mean, Giancarlo Stanton. As much as I know that he would love to win a World Series, I just don't see like he feels like he has much to prove. Like even except for staying on the field, and even then, like he gets hurt all the time.
If that's his measuring stick, then he's not proving himself because he can't stay on the field.
Like he gets hurt all the time.
And he's only a DH.
Right.
He doesn't even play the field.
Right.
And he's hurt constantly. I mean,
it's brutal.
It is.
And I don't know how much of that is like him and how much is the Yankees. Like, I don't know. Because he never got hurt like this. He hasn't been hurt like this. I mean, he gets hurt every single year for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Like someone that's in that good a shape really shouldn't be that.
I don't know if going back a few years ago, if Brian Cashman actually had the choice with Derek Jeter between Stanton and Yelich, but did he fuck that up.
Nobody saw Yelich coming like that.
Ooh, I wanted Yelich.
But nobody saw him becoming an MVP type player.
Oh, I'll agree with you on that, but at the time, I remember being like, God, I really would have rather had Yelich.
Well, of course.
So
he's a two-way player. Like,
and he was,
and you wouldn't have had to spend anywhere near as much money for him. Like, but that's not what Cashman wanted. Cashman wanted the big bat. But then, then he got the big bat, and then he kept on getting more and more big bats. But they all strike out.
It's just a team of they strike out a lot. Oh, it's a hard team to. First of all, they're very difficult to watch, and they're even harder to root for. They're not likable.
No,
it's not a likable team.
No,
I don't know. It's there could be some thin years coming for Yankee fans here. There really could. This team might need a way bigger overhaul than you think on the surface. They really might.
Yeah, I mean, and your boy Yelich has not been playing well the last 2 years. I know he didn't have a good year last year, but I just looked at this year's stats.
Yeah, where's he at?
Batting .250.
That's still better than a lot of Yankees.
I mean, his on-base percentage is almost .400, but
I can count on a full. Yeah, that's what makes it acceptable.
But I can count
on a full hand how many Yankees are not hitting at the Mendoza line right now.
He's got 64 at-bats and 25 strikeouts. And he's got 5 home runs.
Everybody is striking
14
out.
14 RBIs. He's just not.
You know what, though?
He's got 16 hits in 21 games.
Really? Well, that's a lot. That's not many games either. Well,
No.
he must have been hurt. So he's been hurt for more than half the year so far. Yeah, listen, I just don't see any scenario. And then, you know what? And this is going to be this week right here. I'm not saying you can. You can't win anything in May or June, but you can lose something in May or June. And this week right here, Rays for 4, Red Sox for 3. I don't even know what the best case scenario is for them this week. Like a realistic best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I think the realistic best case scenario is honestly going 3-4. And I think the worst case scenario is, I don't think they'll get swept. I think they'll eke a game in there somewhere, but I could see 1-6 or 2-5 happening. I really, really could. These are teams that, I'm sorry, at this particular moment are significantly better and healthier than the Yankees. So that's probably a good or bad place to end, depending on your perspective.